Hello, I'm Jerry, and we're back again for our final chat with Scott Nelson. Scott has been a leader in business and responsible for over $1 billion of supplies and services. Scott, thanks for taking time to join us today for Impact.
Thanks for having me back for our final session.
Thank you. So far, we have talked about the 3 S's and the 3 C's. Now tell us about the purpose of the capstone.
Sure. So we laid a strong foundation with the 3 S's. That was sincerity, self-awareness, service. And on top of that foundation, we built a little bit more outwardly focused with the 3 C's. That was credibility, confidence, and collaboration. So the purpose of the capstone, which is really the final piece, is to marry all of that theory with practice through application. And the way we're going to do that is through balancing 3 important leadership imperatives, because it really is all about balance. And sometimes these are very polar opposites in terms of the extremes. So finding an appropriate balance will yield the best result. We're going to start with balancing inspiration with realism. Several years ago, I had an opportunity to meet Tim Kite. Tim was the CEO of Focus 3. Focus 3 is an organization that really specialized in leadership development. Sadly, Tim passed away almost 2 years ago. And even though Tim passed away, his teachings and a lot of the things that he shared with us have really been foundational and I'd say inspiring to me as I've created my own leadership philosophy. So Tim had this great quote, and I'm going to share it with you right now. And what he would often say is, remember, if it isn't happening in you, it won't happen through you.
Okay. So if it isn't happening in you, it won't happen through you. So do me a favor and go a little deeper on this one.
I'd love to, because I think it's just so powerful. Think about what you expect from a leader, and you expect any leader is going to radiate belief and positivity to the point where all of the people that leader is responsible for and leading believe the same, that it can be accomplished the same way that leader has. So that's really important as far as it happens within you, it happens in you, and then it can happen through you. But the watch out in all of that is it can often come off as a little bit Pollyannish or maybe detached from reality, because we've got this great vision of the future, but does that leader really realize where we are today?
Right.
So what an extraordinary leader does is he or she creates a bridge. They take a compelling vision of the future, that how are we going to get there to this promised land? And they create a bridge from there from the brutal reality that exists today, which is we're not there. Matter of fact, we may be so far from there that we can't even see where there is. But the extraordinary leader creates that bridge, and so they radiate that belief, they create that positivity, they acknowledge the current reality, sometimes the brutal reality, and through that, they've captured the hearts and the minds of those that they lead and have inspired them to make that journey with the leader.
Oh, you clearly explained it. Thank you.
So that, I just love that. I will refer to another Tim Kiteism here in a moment, but let's pivot to the next balance, and that's the balance between deliberation and a bias for action. And Jerry, you've probably worked with leaders on both ends of that spectrum. I know I have. You've got the folks that are meticulous. They want to analyze each and every detail, understand what are all the various possibilities, look at the problem or the situation from every single angle. And what happens is absolutely nothing, except you've consumed a lot of time. You've burned a lot of calories, and in the end, you haven't accomplished anything. That's obviously an extreme in a place where we don't want to be. And I'm not saying it's not important to analyze. Don't misunderstand. But then there's the other extreme, and I worked with a gentleman at one point. He said, I want to be known as the GSD leader, and it was get stuff done. Actually, it wasn't get stuff done. It was something else, but you kind of get my drift.
I do.
And that's good, because as leaders, we're expected to get things done. But that can often manifest itself in sort of this ready, fire, aim mentality. And in the end, you don't necessarily understand, well, what's the problem we're even trying to solve? What is the current situation? What are the potential ramifications? And it could be catastrophic, taking that kind of an approach. So the extraordinary leader really knows how to find the balance between those two. And what the extraordinary leader does is they know how and when do I thoughtfully challenge. So I engage my folks, I thoughtfully challenge them in debate, but then they also know when is it pencils down and when is it time to align on the direction or the solution as it may be, and go do. And at the end of it, that's what we need to do is we need to execute. So achieving that balance between I've deliberated, I've gotten as far as I can with the best information possible, now it's time to go and GSD. The third is achieving that balance between trust and building trust. And we talked about how important it is to building trust in our two other segments. It's been a common theme throughout. And balancing that with achieving results. There's another great Tim Kightism that I'll quote here. And Tim would say, trust without results is unacceptable. Results without trust is unsustainable. Trust without results is unacceptable. Results without trust is unsustainable. And when you unpack that, I think what it really tells you is you can spend all the time in the world and have all of the trust, but if in the end we're not accomplishing as leaders, that's what we're paid to do. That's what we're expected to do. Likewise, you can have leaders that just GSD and they're all about achieving the results, and that may be sustainable for a brief period of time, but it won't be lasting. Your ability to be able to drive incremental, extraordinary results is going to be marginalized. So in the end, leadership is all about driving results, but it's doing it on a strong foundation and a basis of trust so that people will follow you everywhere.
So, and thank you for that, because it was detailed and it was to the point and I got all of it, and I know our audience will too. So would you do me a favor and give me an example of a time when you had to step up and get it done, putting all the fluff aside, making sure business happens?
Well, just one example?
Just one.
What I'll just say, and I don't even mean it this way, but I wouldn't refer to any of it as fluff per se. I think, sometimes people will talk about these things. Oh, it's the soft skills. I think it's actually the hard skills, because you're dealing with people. They're complex, and it's very difficult to get people aligned to and mobilized and marching in the same direction to execute.
Yes.
So with all that, and I didn't mean to take exception to the word, but I would say that there hasn't been a time where I've put it all aside, but there was a time. I'll give you a great example of one, actually a recent one, where I came into a new position in a new organization, and my very first day as a team, we met and we were talking about installing a new inventory management system, or what I thought was a new inventory management system. Well, as the conversation unfolded, and this was a couple-hour conversation. Now, keep in mind, just you and I sitting here for 10, 15 minutes is difficult for me to sit still. For a couple-hour meeting, it's extremely difficult. But it's my first day. I'm really eager to learn. I want to understand what the team's prioritizing on. And so as we got through talking about all of the various considerations for this new inventory management system, it occurred to me that this wasn't the first time that we were having this conversation. Well, it was the first time we were having this conversation. It wasn't the first time they were having this conversation. So I let it play out, and I listened, and I took notes. And after the meeting ended, with honestly no real actions to be taken, no real next steps. It was sort of a hanging chad, if you will, as far as where are we going to go next. So I grabbed one of the team members and pulled him aside, and I said, so tell me a little bit more about the inventory management system. How long have we been talking about this? And he thought for a minute, and he said, at least a year. And I had that was my reaction. Actually, my reaction might have been a little bit more strong and surprised, because I'm also thinking, what have I gotten myself into? But he said, yeah, at least a year. I said, at least a year? Well, yeah, it was probably a little bit longer. Okay. This we can do better than this. So I took a lot of time that evening just thinking through what I had heard. And what I heard was a lot of conviction from many members of the team throughout the discussion. And I heard a direction and a consensus around a direction. What I didn't hear was, we're ready to take the next step. And, there was some credibility on the line, some internal credibility. It's not an insignificant investment. So there's money on the line. And, in the end, people want to make sure we're making the right decision and being the best steward of our resources. But I also heard that they knew the answer. They knew the right thing. They maybe didn't have the psychological safety that we've talked about before. They maybe didn't have the confidence that they knew enough to make the call. They maybe didn't feel like they had the cover from their leadership to make it. So just fast forward to the next meeting, we got together and it was on the agenda again. And in this time, I started out by saying, look, I really appreciate we had the opportunity. I learned a lot listening to you all this last time. And I understand that wasn't the first conversation that we've had around it. And this may have been out there for a while. And we've been admiring this problem for quite some time. And, smiles cracked and heads nodded. Yep, and it came out, people were pretty blunt and said, I'm tired of talking about this. I said, well, what are we waiting for? What are we waiting for? And honestly, nobody could answer that question. What are we waiting for? We're waiting for somebody to make a decision. Is somebody me? Is somebody this group? We're not really sure, but we're not really, we need someone to make a call. I said, well, I've listened and I went through high-level bullets of everything that I heard people talk about. And I said, so-and-so, you said this. So do you believe? Yeah, I believe that. Okay, well, went to another person. You brought up this, and this. What are the risks behind that? Well, I think they're minimal. So, okay. And we just kept going down the list. And I replayed the things that I heard each individual saying and the conviction with which they said it. And at the end, I said, so what did I miss? What am I not seeing? We've talked about that question. No, I think you pretty much got it. That was pretty good, Scott, for the first meeting. Well, I took good notes and I listened. That was all that I did. I said, okay, so what am I seeing that I'm refusing to acknowledge? So, nothing really. I mean, we think we know what we need to do here. I said, okay, well, we've done what we need to. We've done the due diligence. Back to something I mentioned earlier. You've been true to the process. Have confidence that you've followed the process. You've been true to it. And ultimately, there are going to be things that we're going to miss. But by taking another meeting after that, it's the diminishing returns are there. And so let's make the call. Let's go with it. And in the end, you've got the cover. And if we make the wrong decision, we make the wrong decision. And we can be then confident that we can follow a similar process and come back and make a better, more informed decision. Well, at the end of it, that was the right decision. And it was with the appropriate rigor, and it was with the right information. And people just needed to know that they needed to know the time was pencils down. It was, we thoughtfully challenged. Now we're aligning on the decision we're going to go do. So that was
great example.
That was one of many.
I applaud you for that one. That was it.
My blood's boiling just thinking about all the time and the calories that we spent on that. But
so let's do this. Let's summarize your presentation. What would be your key takeaway from your impact today that you could provide to us?
Well, I think hopefully there's been a common theme throughout. And that is that just because you have a position or a title or an office or a nice clipboard, that's not what leadership is. People are complex. We are complex animals. We talked about emotion. Emotion drives a lot of how we process information. For some of us, how we do it and what we do and how we do it. So with complex people and the complexity of managing people, it's important to view leadership as a journey and a skill that needs to be continuously built. And I think that's what I love about the correlation with education, because it's all about building capabilities, building skill, getting reps, getting better every day, learning more. The situations change. You need to understand different tools for different scenarios. All of that, I think, is really important that's what makes a leader, is that the continuous thirst to be able to learn more and do more and build skill through continuous reps. And you need to do the work. It doesn't just come to you. You don't just get the title and now all of a sudden you know what to do in each situation. So ultimately, the leader needs to capture the hearts and minds. Leadership is capturing hearts and minds and inspiring people to do things that they otherwise wouldn't do. And in the end, that's what it is. And it's accomplishing results through other people. If it was just about the leader accomplishing the results, that'd be easy, I think. But the challenge is, how do you do it for other people? So I think if you take the 3 S's as the foundation, if you take the 3 C's on top of it, if you take the capstone of achieving all of this balance, hopefully it provides a little bit of a roadmap colored with some of Tim's quotes and inspirations from his leadership philosophy, and what's become some of mine, that ultimately, if you piece all those things together and you approach it with humility and you approach it with self-assuredness and the right balance, you'll be able to create people who will do extraordinary things.
That's outstanding. Scott Nelson, my friend and my colleague, thank you for making an impact here today. On behalf of the students, on behalf of St. Charles Community College, we appreciate partnering with you to kick off Impact 2026. To our audience, thank you for tuning in today. Thank you for your time and commitment to St. Charles Community College. Keep checking in for our newest episodes and have an awesome rest of your day. And remember, please be bold, be confident, and be extraordinary.